A recent recipient of the Order of Canada is joining me today. Winnipeg's own Steve Bell, member of the Order of Canada. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. So start off by, it was quite some time ago you got this information. You're receiving the Order of Canada. 2 years-ish went by.
Yep.
Tell me about this ceremony.
Oh, the ceremony was it's gorgeous. You're in Rideau Hall, which is on Sussex Drive, number 1 Sussex Drive. So it's a beautiful old stately building. It's where the Governor General, in this case, it's Mary Simon, who I'm just delighted is our first Indigenous Governor General. So that made it a bit more special for me for all sorts of reasons. And so you arrive at this gorgeous place. My wife and my daughter who got to come, they get ushered somewhere else and they wait in this beautiful room. And then the rest of us are ushered to another room where we get a lesson in protocol. And then you're ushered in and you sit with, I think there was 70 of us that received it. And then their guests. And one by one, they read your citation and you're brought up. And it's a very simple pinning it on, getting a photo, and you sit back down. But it's lovely, and then a beautiful lunch. You go and have this gorgeous lunch in this grand old building. So it feels it feels unique. There's a regality to it. There's pomp and ceremony to it. It's not overly done. There's a lightheartedness. There's fun. But you're in a room which is striking with all these magnificent people. Like when they start reading the citations of these people that you and I would never have heard of otherwise, for the most part. There's a few of us that are public people, but most are, scientists or educators or activists who are not well known. And the astonishing things. And in an era where it's hard to feel really great about human beings, it's really important, I think, to celebrate the goodness that comes from human beings, from all walks of life and all faiths and creeds, and it's very inspiring.
That's amazing. I was going to say, there's all these recipients. Did any of them stand out to you where you went, oh, wow?
Well, yeah, there was I can't think of his name. There was an actor.
Victor Garber.
Yes, Victor Garber.
Sorry.
My goodness.
I love that guy.
I don't, you know what? Here's the funny thing. I saw him and he's a very kind man. Like immediately you just feel kindness and goodness emanating from him. And for some reason he looks just a little bit Manitoba Mennonite-ish. And so I'm assuming that he's somebody I know from back home. So the whole time I'm thinking, think. This is somebody who's the head of some organization back home that you know. And at one point I waved at him and he didn't wave back. Like he kind of looked at me funny and kind of did a wave back. So he doesn't know me. It was my daughter said, Dad, that's Victor Garber.
From the Titanic.
From the Titanic. And so she went and got a photo with him. And he was just so lovely. He was just so pleased to be in this room with these people. Proud to be a Canadian, proud to have made his contribution. It was quite, he was wonderful. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah. Receiving the Order of Canada. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a funny thing. When I got the call, so I became a member of the Order of Canada 2 years ago. The reason why the ceremony has just happened is because they're late and they're behind in the ceremonies because of COVID.
Right. So
they're still just catching up. So I came to the office and my assistant Faye Hall said, you're supposed to call this number. I called Ottawa. It was the Governor General's office. And it's funny, my first thought is, am I in trouble? Like you just immediately start thinking of like your whole life, what have I done that finally I got caught? I don't know why you immediately go there. But they said, you've been nominated and you're approved to become a member of the Order of Canada. She says, it's yours. If you say yes, please say yes. That's what she said. And so your first thought, is to be appropriately humble. You think, why me? And you can think of a million other people that should get it, and they should. But she said, everybody goes through this little tug of why them and why not others, that even people yourself. And she says, the motto is, I should read it here. It's in Latin. It's desiderantes meliorium patrium, which means they desire a better country. And she says, we're just basically honoring people that in their public lives and the work that they do show that they're working for the common good. And she said, is that a problem, you being recognized for that? And I thought, well, no, that's what I do. To the best of my ability, that's fine. So I feel honored to be recognized for that. But it also feels a little bit not like an award or reward as much as it almost feels like a calling. To keep doing it, like this is not like it's not like you've done your job. It's like we're seeing you going in a direction we want to support you and affirm you and encourage you to continue. So it feels not like a done deal. It feels like the beginning of a journey. So that's kind of nice. Yeah,
I love that, and I know we've talked a lot, but truly, I think you, of many people that I know, deserve this, and I see it.
Well, thanks.
I'm proud of you. I really am.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I mean, it's funny, as Christians too. I mean, we have a discomfort with awards and public honors, and that's fine, and we should be very not concerned, but wary of them. At the same time, as a people, we need to be holding up models of good civic people who work for the common good, in a world of sort of the cult of radical individualism, which I really think is from the pit of hell. I really do. I mean, if we think about who God is as Trinitarian, God is a communion. God is a community in God's very self. And when one thing that salvation certainly means is being saved from radical alienation, whether it's chosen or imposed. And that is certainly, so you see Jesus drawing people in from the margins all the time. Whoever's excluded, Jesus brings in. And that's the offense. And in the Western world, where radical individualism is almost the height of it's the celebrated thing, We make ourselves, we create ourselves, we recreate ourselves. It's all quite anti-Christian, and so I think to have public ceremonies that honor folks that see a little bit differently is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And so again, if I don't deserve it now, I feel like I need to go and deserve it, right? So that's fine. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because of what they read for you, I would love, for those who don't know, if you could just tell us a little bit about Churches for Freedom Road Coalition that you co-founded. Oh,
yeah. Okay. So years ago, and some will remember this, there was a big fight. People in Winnipeg got together and behind Shoal Lake 40 First Nations, who 100 years ago, very quickly were displaced because their traditional homeland or place was the quote, perfect place to get our water from for the city of Winnipeg. And so we rather unceremonially moved them and created a 70-mile aqueduct. And Winnipeg has been getting their water ever since from there. The First Nation was moved to what became an island. They're basically marooned for years and lived in a situation where prosperity wasn't possible. And so they began a fight to have a bridge to the mainland and a road to the main road so they could just participate in the economy in a safe way. And for whatever reason, there has just been objection to this for all this time. So I heard about this sort of very, very late in the game. It was just as governments were the resistance was starting to fall. And a few of us heard about this. And we formed a coalition called Churches for Freedom Road, where we had churches put on their signs. It was right before a federal election that said we support Shoal Lake 40 First Nation and Freedom Road. And the implication was we will vote against those who vote against it. And it became quite a big thing. And we were a small part of a much larger movement that became Friends of Shoal Lake 40. So there's all kinds of other civic groups. We kind of found each other. Right. So, I wasn't the leader of it, just that I was the most public person, so I get a lot of credit for it. But it wasn't my thing. I was just part of something.
But you stood up and said something.
Yeah. It just like that was just such a no-brainer to me. And even with churches, I've been very concerned about churches not really taking seriously the our need to take truth and reconciliation with Indigenous people seriously. And I know what some of the fears are. I thought, boy, this is just such an easy way to get your toe in the water, to start practicing, or even just building relationships and practicing justice in a way that one was a no-brainer. We've been basically thriving off this resource at the deep cost of the community. It was an easy repair. And for some reason, it wasn't easy for us to do. But I was kind of hoping it would kickstart a movement in the churches, and it really hasn't. I think people afterwards sort of thought, well, there we did our thing. We did our reconciliation thing. And so for me, my heart is a bit, I really, once it was done, everybody kind of wanted to say, okay, we're done with that. And I was kind of hoping it would be the exact opposite. They would say, hey, we started. And for churches, I wish every church would have a task force, a reconciliation task force that goes out and creates relationships with Indigenous people, knowledge keepers, elders, dialogue about what can our community do to be part of making amends, repair. So anyways, it started and then it kind of fizzled, and I think about that a fair bit. I'm not quite sure how to rekindle that.
Absolutely, something to consider. Thinking. Which, speaking of the future, if you don't mind me pivoting a little bit, what does the new year look like for you?
Well, I just put out a new album,
Yes,
so called The Glad
exciting.
Surprise, and so we started the tour of that in this last fall. That was really fun. So now I basically go out. So I hit all the big cities in the fall. So now for the rest of the years, it's hitting the smaller centers. With the bigger centers, I could go out with a band, which is really fun. So now I'm just back to myself sitting on a stool, which is okay. I like that as well. But basically, it's a fairly simple, just get out there and sing the songs.
Maybe a little storytelling in between.
A little storytelling in between. You know what? Even if I try not to, I do.
Yeah.
So it's just what happens when I get on a stage. I start telling stories, and so, oh yeah, for sure. There's that. There's a few things. I'm 64. This is my last year before I'm an official senior, and it's not like I'm ready to retire. But you start to think, okay, I'm entering a late stage of life. What does it mean? What if I look at all the assets that I have, the social capital that I've built over the years, the question is now, and this is my prayer, is, Lord, what would you have me do with these? And I don't really have an answer for that at the moment. I assume I'm going to continue writing songs and recording and doing concerts for the rest of my life. That I think until I can't do that, I will do that. But in terms of getting into behind a social cause or a theological dialogue of a specific kind, I'm deep into Bonhoeffer these days as we see North America sort of devolve into Christian nationalism, and there's some deep parallels with pre-Nazi Germany. I'm not saying that's where we're going, but it's alarming, and so these are things I think about and read about a lot at the moment. So I'm trying to be a little bit on the quieter side, because the next few years with sort of political meltdown, social breakdown, aggravated by climate crisis, things could look very different in 5 years from now. And now is the time to prepare. What does it mean to be followers of Jesus when the economy is not stable, when the environment is not stable, when it may not be safe in neighborhoods, when you know what I mean? Canada is known for being polite. Well, we've been able to afford to be polite. But we saw in COVID that the minute you take away resources, people get nasty pretty quick. So I'm worried. I'm not anxious in the sense of an unholy anxiety, but in the sense of, are we prepared to be Christian in a different environment, one that we're not used to? If you go to Israel, Gaza, they're used to. They're if you go to the Middle East, you go to all kinds of areas in the world. They're used to limited resources. They're used to that kind of competition, and their Christian faith is set in that environment. We're not accustomed to vulnerability, and so I think right now, more and more, I want to be part of helping us prepare for what does it mean to be Christian in that environment. And that's going to take discipline, that's going to take resolve, that's going to take deep, deep faith that whatever suffering is coming our way, and I believe there is suffering coming our way that we're not prepared for, but that we can accept with faith and give witness to who Christ showed us God is in that.
Right on. Well, thank you always for sharing your heart.
Yeah.
And congrats again on the Order of Canada.
Thank you.
Appreciate it a lot.
Oh,